5 of the time that I became a JW, only to marry a member of the congregation and to find out that he is in fact a pedo. So I'm just going to go right into it and pick up where I left off on part 4. So if you have yet to watch part 4, please go back and do so. So we're going to dive right into the psychology appointment. First, it was the icebreaker and just getting to know me, getting to know my husband at the time, and getting to know what was happening in our life. Well, the psychologist asked me to step out of the appointment so that he could talk to my husband at the time alone. And so I did. I was gone for a few minutes, then I was brought back in. It was during this time that the psychologist said that your husband has some more information he would like to share with you. And he said it wasn't just that content that he was viewing and the photos and videos that he was taking. It was also that he was viewing contents of bestiality, and he actually engaged in acts. Yes, you heard that correctly. He had actually engaged in those acts, and we don't have a dog, so I don't understand how this was even happening and taking place. I do remember asking the psychologist, with all that has been revealed, aren't you going to report what you're hearing? And the psychologist said, well, no, because I don't think that what I'm hearing means that your husband is a current threat and will do something physically to somebody. And I'm like, what about what you have heard tells you that he's not going to? He is already engaging in physical acts of taking photos and videos, abusing animals. And this isn't something that he did years ago and he's just trying to learn how to move forward. This is something he is doing right now in the present, in this moment. How does that not mean he's an active threat? And the psychologist goes, well, the thing is that there's a gray area technically in our state. What he is doing, there's nothing that can prevent him from doing that. He goes, we don't have the type of privacy laws here in our state that some other states do. He goes, so it's actually gray area. He can do that. And I'm like, well, then I need to go into politics and run for governor because things need to be changed. I don't believe this. I'm not buying it. And another thing that he said was, you have to understand, Shandi, typically when I work with clients like this, I'm working with them when they're in their 60s or 70s. He goes, meaning they've done this for years. He goes, I've never actually worked with somebody who is as young as your husband, who is coming forth with all this information. And I was like, oh, okay, great, noted. So what you're basically saying is that, Shandi, I don't care about the emotional stress you're going under, and I am using this as simply a study case because this is such an interesting case, and I've never experienced this before. So I'm basically going to use you two as guinea pigs and to study this case. So as you could tell, being 19 years old and hearing this from a psychologist, I just felt extremely, extremely alone in my experience. I felt incredibly alone. I felt like this needed to come out, and I wasn't going to stop, and I was going to try. So when the psychologist stated about the mandated reporting, I actually got in contact with a lawyer. And the lawyer actually reiterated this a very similar thing, that I don't have the physical, tangible evidence to prove that this is happening, even though that's what he is saying. And then also, in order for the DA to prosecute this criminally, the DA is going to need concrete, tangible evidence. And again, I was like, politics might just be in my future because, again, I don't understand that. I thought it's someone makes a report, and then because they make the report, then there's an investigation. But he's saying it's not just the report alone. There also needs to be tangible evidence amongst the report so that the DA can then file a criminal charge. I'm going to put a pin in it there because this will be brought up again during the divorce proceedings, and so I'll talk more about that later. But let's get back to the meeting that we did have with the congregation elders. So remember, this meeting takes place a week after the psychology appointment, and now I have more information to bring to the table. And so we're meeting with the elders. They say a prayer. They say the floor is yours to reveal what you guys need to reveal or talk about. And my husband at the time, the only thing that he says is, I have a pornography addiction. I have viewed gay porn and I have viewed bestiality. And he stops there. And so at this point, I am doing my little tics and antics. I'm just tapping my finger. My legs are restless. And the other brother notices and he says, Sister so-and-so, do you need a moment? And I said, yes, actually, we need a moment. And so we stepped out, and my husband goes, I'm going to get this fellowship either way, so they don't need to know the other information. And I said, they need to know the information because there's children and families here to protect. That's why they need to know. This isn't about you. This is about the fact that you are a predator. And even if you're disfellowshipped, you can still come into the congregation willy-nilly. It doesn't mean you can't come into the congregation. It just means you can't participate and go door to door. That's all. But you can still come in freely. And then he makes a look at the door, and I look at him and I follow his eyes, and he's looking at the entrance of the congregation, and I just kind of chuckle, and I'm like, you know, you can leave and it will be very telling. Or I can go in there and you can stay out here and I'll say everything. But either way, I'm not leaving this congregation until everything that you shared with me is out in the air. Because I am not a secret keeper. I'm not keeping your secrets, and this can't stay in my chest. So we go back in, we sit. There's an awkward 30-second long pause that feels like 5 to 10 minutes. He's not saying anything. He looks at me, tears are running down his face, and I just look at the elders and I said, my husband hasn't just been viewing gay porn and bestiality. He has also been viewing child pornography. I have yet to know if he's actually downloaded or shared it. He's been doing it for years. Not only that, but he has been taking upskirt photos and videos of the women and children in this congregation. And you want to know the crazy thing? The elders did not look speechless. The way they looked was kind of like, oh, heard this before. So I asked them the same question that I actually asked the psychologist. I said, you guys are in a position of authority and you oversee a large number of people and you are part of an organization. Legally, in our state, that makes you, whether you signed up for it or not, a mandated reporter. So that being said, are you guys going to report this? And one of the youngest elders that was on the committee said, we keep our affairs separate from the government. So, but if you wish to go and report this, you're more than welcome to, but we ourselves will not be reporting this information that we hear. And I said, but there's families here, children of elders that are here who my husband took pictures and videos of. So you're telling me, if you were out and about at the park with your family and some creep came over and took a photo of your child, an inappropriate photo, whatever the case may be, you're saying you wouldn't call 911 just to report it? You're saying you wouldn't call 911 if a creep was hanging around a playground? And the other was like, no, well, I would. And I said, so then why does it not apply once you step in this building, though? So one of the elders looks at me, and it was a different elder, and he said, Sister so-and-so, that matter is in your hands. And I said, no, it's actually also in your hands, because of the children that he said he was interested in the congregation, it's your child, your 10-year-old girl, that he said he was especially fond of, which tells me that my husband has probably taken numerous upskirt photos and videos of your 10-year-old girl. Now what are you going to do? This elder didn't say nothing when I shared that with him. The look on his face, the swallowing sound that he made, and he just stared at me, and I reiterated again, and I remember reiterating it by slightly standing up and kind of posturing towards him. And I'm like, it is your child that this man has violated, and your wife. What are you going to do about it? This man doubled down and sat back in his chair and said, we keep our affairs separate from the government. If you personally would like to go and share something, you can. But we ourselves are not going to. And you guys, this isn't even the end of it. I have yet to even share with you the revelation of the house that we moved into, how I had to tell his parents about what was going on, and that situation. There is so much more information here. Wait for part 6.